on Orcas. And we have half of the commission online in Orcas and the other half at the Orcas Fire Station. So, welcome everyone. We will, I'll call the meeting to order and we will start with a general public comment period. Before we have general public comments, I would like to bring up and introduce Mary Gropp, who has declared as a candidate for the open board position. Mary has worked with the land bank for a long time, so we've invited her to make some comments and introduce herself to the commission. Mary.
From here,
Where-
you'd bring me up. Yeah, hi, I'm Mary Gropp. I know most of you in this room at least. I'm a longtime resident of Orcas. I visited here, spent many happy days in the cold water as a child, and then my family moved here in the 70s. And I moved back in the 80s and have lived here most of my adult life ever since. I feel I've applied for the commission partly because I'm just such an enthusiastic supporter of what the land bank does, and I think the staff on the commission has done just great things. And my connections with the community are deep, wide, and I'm also my hobby is studying the natural environment and everything here. So my husband and I built a house on Orcas. We raised our kids here. I did a lot of different jobs on the island before settling in at the public school for 20 years. But I always have tried to keep my fingers in the conservation kind of field. And doing that, I was one of the first monitors for the Samuel Preservation Trust. And I'm told that my little handwritten notes and maps are still in the file for that. In 2015, I took over the fledgling Orcas Youth Conservation Corps and had to reach out to built that program only for 3 years, doing the funding and talking to land managers and shepherding 16 middle schoolers through projects. And more recently, I was asked by the elementary school to come back and help create a science-based outdoor program. So each elementary class goes outdoors 1 day a month and does science and place-based education. And in both of those projects, it was really fun to use the land bank properties and create a curriculum and education projects to plant those little seeds of loving the environment in the kids, which will, spread to their families and hopefully stay with them for their life. So, other things, I've done a lot of wilderness travel, both up the coast and on long distance trails through the western states. And I'm intrigued by the interaction of people and public lands and places, and worked, like Brian said, for 3 years as a seasonal field assistant. So I have deep respect for what the staff does for not only acquiring property, but I have a knowledge of what it takes hands-on to steward the lands.
And you're
So
a Western Washington graduate, right?
A what?
A Western Washington.
I am a Western Washington graduate, yeah. It took me a while, but I am a Western Washington graduate. Yeah, I'm more of a lifetime learner with a college degree. So anyway, so I would really appreciate and enjoy the opportunity to contribute to the commission.
Thanks, Mary. Anybody have any questions for Mary? Hearing none.
When can you start?
Sure.
I'll just add that I met Mary when she recruited me, when I was first the land bank commissioner, and she recruited me to also be a member of the Youth Conservation Corps
That's
board.
right,
And
the advisory.
so we worked together for at least a couple of years
Yeah.
on that, and I've seen her work in organization.
And I
So,
really enjoyed working with Mary for several seasons. It's been a great productive time together, I think.
Mhm.
And Mary and I did, we're trying to remember exactly.
We did a
Wetland.
high grant, a wetlands education project.
Right, back in the early.
Early 80s.
Or 80s, sometime.
Puget Sound.
For Preservation Trust.
Yeah, it was supposed to be public education, but we educated ourselves,
Yeah,
right, about
exactly.
wetlands. That was fun.
That was really
Yeah.
fun.
Well, it sounds like you needed no introduction.
You know,
And I was on the Locust Island Conservation Corps board when Mary was recruited, when you volunteered
yeah.
to take over the Orcas Island Conservation Corps, and she did it all by herself.
Yeah.
Which
looking at
always
school.
impressed me.
Yeah.
That was so much work.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Thanks for coming. Okay, we will now open it to general public comment. Any other members of the public? I see one online. Okay. Guess no further public comment. So we will then move on to our, the approval of our, September, where are we? September minutes. Anybody? Comments?
Come on, Tim, you're up. We know.
Yeah, just. Okay, for minor stuff, page 2, under council liaison. Second line, Jane reported its budget time for the county. It should be that it is budget time. This is getting really thick.
Oh, you are.
Um, had a couple questions, expenditures on page 3.
Oh, my good.
There's acquisition costs, unspecified acquisition projects, 480,000 for the Coho Cascade Creek addition purchase. Okay, so I guess that's the acquisition costs and unspecified acquisition projects.
So unspecified acquisition projects refers to, there's no budget line item yet. They haven't associated a code to it yet. And since we're adding it or requesting it for the budget, that'll be created
Okay,
afterwards.
sure, that makes perfect sense. And what?
You're jumping into the budget. Is this part of what we're approving?
The minutes.
That's
Is
the
this part of our notes
Summary.
still? Okay.
Yes,
summary.
and I think that was it.
Yeah.
So,
Good, thanks,
very
Tim.
good.
Any others? Anne Marie?
Yeah, I just want to compliment the staff on how they captured the budget conversation because it was so extensive. And I thought it was an excellent job there. Thank you.
Peggy?
Yeah, so one silly little thing, but I also went out to Overmarsh.
Yeah.
Not just Tim,
Where is that?
right up in the beginning. It said I went to Mount Ben West, well, so we all did.
Oh,
So Amy and I and Tim all went to Lincoln, West Side Lake, and then I also went up to Overmarsh, which was fascinating. And I have a bunch of questions about some of the budget stuff, but so the sale of the Fraser Homestead, is that happening?
It's a budget line item, so
Budget.
it
But-
hasn't happened yet, but could.
Okay, because I thought it was off the tape.
It's in
Limbo,
limbo, yeah, so,
that's a nice way of putting it.
I mean, it's been approved in the FY 25 budget for the Park Service. And those funds have not been released, and now, of course, we're in shutdown, so I don't know.
All right.
Good.
Online commissioners, any comments? On the budget, on the, minutes?
Mike unmuted.
Okay.
Oh, Marilyn.
Marilyn,
This isn't specifically on the minutes, but I just wanted to share that regarding the Fraser homestead, I think that we would be prudent to not anticipate receiving that money. I don't want to hold out hope for something that, given the background of the country right now, seems very unlikely it will happen. So personally, I crossed it off my receivables list. Thanks.
thanks, Marilyn. I just had one question. on page 3 of the minutes under, this is on the budget. And under the conservation area fund expenditures, repair and maintenance, $90,000 estimated cost for San Juan office improvements and painting. Why is that under the conservation area fund and not under stewardship fund?
Because it's our admin building specific,
Okay,
just moving,
It was-
moving some expenses from,
it matters
It's
not.
arbitrary.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's good enough.
you know, reduces costs in stewardship fund when it's an
Okay,
administrative.
fine, that just struck me as kind of funny. All right, good, thanks. So with that, approval of the minutes. Consensus, the minutes are approved. Now we move on to our partner update, and we have Ms. Angela Anderson from the San Juan Preservation Trust in person.
Good morning, again, Angela Anderson, Executive Director of the San Juan Preservation Trust. I'm happy to be here with you all. And I have a few things to report and also happy to answer any questions. Probably the top thing on our list is the Mount Ben West campaign. And I'm so glad that the commission was able to go out to the property after the last commission meeting. This is a tremendous opportunity for us to work together on future potential property that goes from the sea to the summit of Mount Ben. But this is sort of that middle property that we've got to secure first. We're about a third of the way through the fundraising, so we got a good start. But that means we've got over $1 million to raise in the next 4 months. So we still have a ways to go. But I'm excited. We do have a $750,000 match. It's a true match, so it's 1-to-1. So we have to raise that to get that. So we'll be able to move, the difference between the million quick. But we do have to be able to raise restricted funds to be able to utilize the match. The campaign website is up on our website. We've got a webpage, SJPT Mount Ben West. And if folks are interested, please contact Kristen at sjpt.org. I wanted to report on a recent project taking place on our Kimball Preserve that's on Decatur Island. And that was with the Coast Salish Youth Coalition. They went out there last weekend, so the weekend before Indigenous Peoples Day, and were able to do some restoration work in preparation of doing a camas harvest later next year. And the ICC participated as well, so it was a full day. And we've got an agreement with the Coast Salish Youth Coalition on use of that preserve, including camping and other cultural access. So this is a first for us, so it's pretty exciting to see how it goes, and we're happy to share our documents and feedback on how we're working through coast stewardship. The other update I wanted to share is on our Phelps Preserve large prairie restoration. When we talk about landscape scale, it's not quite landscape scale, but it's bigger than what we've done before. This is a 6-acre plot that we're doing prairie restoration on. So the entire area had been mowed, tilled, treated, and seeded with native plants, as well as the host plant for IMB, the field mustard. And so there's going to be more prep in the spring, but this is kind of a pilot project to see if we can do scaled prairie restoration. And so we will keep you updated on what that looks like.
And just for reference, the Phelps Preserve is on San Juan Island in the San Juan Valley. It's not far from our False Bay Creek Preserve.
So near Silstra too, kind of, or closer to Silstra.
It's Silstra's the other way.
Okay.
Northwest of that.
Gotcha.
And then the last item I wanted to share, and it's kind of inspired from Mary Gropp's introduction. We have a learning landscapes program, and we've partnered with the land bank on our partner preserves where we have a conservation easement or the land bank holds the fee. This learning landscapes, the goal is to get the schools out onto our preserves. And so we have reached out to each of the schools. We've got a kind of a la carte document now so that they're aware of all the preserves where they have access and the different offerings that we can provide. And so we've got existing arrangements with the Lopez School, the Orcas School, Spring Street, and so we're hoping that we can have at least other private schools as well involved in that learning landscapes. So thankful, we partner on some of those properties, but just wanted to be able to share that that's still moving forward.
So Angela, do you have trust staff going out to do interpretive and educational activities with them?
Yes, so the learning landscapes, we have, what we've done is, and it's on our website, it'll describe what we can offer. So there is, the goal is to be able to bring folks out, have an understanding of what the type of access or what can take place on the preserve. And so we'll offer, depending on the property, it's like 1 to 2 like field trips. So it really depends on the interest involved, because we have 1 staff member, so we won't have them full time doing those, but once folks sign up, they'll be able to schedule with Liz Doan, she's our education specialist, to go out and be introduced to the preserve and understand the background of how the property was protected, and also some naturalist training. She's a great educator.
Yeah. Have any of the land bank stewards or outreach staff been involved in that?
I'm not sure. I think so. I look over to Peter because I'm not sure if he's been out there. I think Crescent Beach is on the list of learning landscapes. So, and I know Orca School utilizes that preserve quite often. So yeah, we're definitely open to being able to reach out and have.
If we're partnering, that would be nice, and I mean, we're all busy.
Yeah.
But if it's just Liz, we do have outreach staff, Tanya does a lot of stuff like that, and one of our goals from last year's retreat, and I guess our strategic plan, was to do exactly that, was to reach out to the schools, so maybe we can partner and
That would be terrific. Yeah.
Angela, is it any of it age specific or grade specific? I was just wondering if you're going the middle, elementary, or the high school.
Yeah, it's right now it's pretty open to, we want to provide the preserves as like, these are spaces that you can utilize, and sometimes the preserves may not be open to the public. So, for example, JV Farm, that's one of the offerings. So it's not generally open to the public, but we want to be able to have that experience. And that would be an experience that would be guided by an SJPT staff person, because we've got a lease on it. So
I just am so concerned about future generations kind of coming and getting into, incorporating them into our programs, because we need people that live here to run the programs when we're all gone.
Yeah. It's this first step of succession planning.
Yes.
That's it.
thank you, Angela. Okay. Next we have our council update, and Councilmember Fuller could not be here today, but instead we have Councilmember Justin Paulson from Orcas Island here to report to us. Justin, you want to come up?
Well, I don't have much to report to you. I didn't come prepared with a report.
Oh, sorry.
Lincoln reached out to me yesterday and informed me that Councilperson Fuller would be able to make it, and said, would you like to come? Since the two of us can't usually be in a room together without it being an open public meeting. So I am here to actually just listen and observe. And I guess what I can report is several of you have reached out regarding budget discussion items. Lincoln has also reached out with budget discussion items. That is ongoing. I think probably at your last meeting, the official budget process was supposed to have started the first week of October, but there's two paths that we can follow in the RCW. We can either start it in October and run it over a period of 3 months, or we can start it the first week in December. And what we've decided to do, because of the shortfalls that we were looking at, was to run a series of budget workshops for 2 months, and then open the official public hearing process the first week of December. So December 3rd will officially be the opening of the budget process. That being said, the next council meetings from now until then are all about budget. So you can tune into pretty much any council meeting from now until December 3rd, and there will be some segment of the county team presenting various pieces of the budget, and we'll be working on making that budget shortfall less hard to swallow. So that would be my update with 3.5 seconds to prepare for it.
So when you say budget workshops, that's a staff process, not public hearing.
It is not a
Aside
public
from
hearing.
comment.
So at our meeting, I'm gonna get the date wrong, so I won't even try. I think this was before your last meeting. We identified about 9% in overall cuts that would need to be made to get the budget balanced. So we charged staff with going back into their budgets. And what would a 9% cut look like if you had to make that? And very clearly acknowledging that we were not asking for a 9% off the top across all departments, and that was gonna be the playing field. But what does 9% look like? What does that do to your ability to operate mandated services versus non-mandated services? And then give us a narrative of sort of, here's the impact, here's what we lose, here's the staff that we lose, here's the services that we can't provide. And so that was all theoretically completed by the departments, I think, as of last week. And so we will be hearing the results of that at our meeting, I believe, on Monday. And then all of the departments, both elected and unelected, will have the opportunity to present sort of their case statements and what the impacts are individually over the next month and a half. That will all be public. It'll be open public meetings, but it won't be an official hearing.
Right.
It's essentially a very long, drawn out public workshop.
Yeah.
So TBD on a lot of that. But I guess, my message to this group specifically is your messages have been heard. And there are lots of thought processes going on how to address not just the concerns that you guys raised, but others that are floating out there.
Marilyn has her hand up.
Marilyn has her hand up, yeah.
Marilyn.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Hi, Justin. Just a quick question for you. Since we've already submitted a budget in which we asked our stewards particularly to make some cuts, were we in error to have submitted that? Should we have submitted a larger budget anticipating these kinds of cuts, or will we be given credit? I don't know what your process will be for the cuts that we've already envisioned.
So Lincoln has given me the update. There's several departments that I will say all proactively took the budgeting they proactively took cutting into their budgeting process on the original ask when they were asked to submit essentially a status quo budget was what the term was. Whether or not it was a true status quo, some departments were more status quo and others were more proactively quo. How about that? So will you be given, the totality of the discussion will center around not just, hey, what did you do in this 9% exercise? But if you made 7.5% as you entered the original budget process, definitely that's going to be on mind. So I guess you will be given credit. Although I hate to use that term. I don't think there was any department that submitted something that was pie in the sky, like, boy, I really hope they'll pass this budget. I think everybody went into the exercise knowing that this was not going to be, there was not gonna be a lot of trees sprouting dollar bills going into this budget process.
And I just one final question. Since you know the land bank sees itself as sort of a different animal, and because of our source of funding, how can you help me understand how that will be seen by the council when you move as you move forward? And I have great sympathy for the process you have to engage in, but I'm curious as to how you will envision this part of the organization since we have a completely separate funding source. Thank you.
So you guys aren't alone. There's multiple funds that are, for lack of a better term, self-funded, or that are highly grant funded. So there will definitely be analysis that is formulated around that base, and it really the impact is the current expense fund. So our essential, kind of general fund dollars. So I would estimate that departments that aren't drawing heavily on that current expense fund are likely to, their hit to the current expense budget is far less. So every department is going to be looked at for efficiencies. And then in the end, it's the current expense fund that is the one that is suffering the most, because it is the one that does not keep up with inflation. So, the root of all of this functionally, well, there's two issues in play here. One was COVID, and we saw a flood of money. Everybody in the country saw a flood of money come in to support operations, just to keep things moving. And that money, we are now at the year that money has all officially been spent and it has ended, and there will be no more. So that's one issue. The other issue is the 1% cap on operations for levies for government operations. So inflation in 2021 was up 9%. We got 1% plus new construction. So that's the root. So those funds that are more self-sustaining are less impacted by that 1% issue. Those funds that rely entirely on current expense are more affected by that. And we will have to, and our job is to figure out how to balance that imbalance.
So I guess the question that I take, tailing on Marilyn's question, is given that at our last meeting, we had a very extensive discussion about the budget, and it's one of the very few times that I recall that we did not come up with consensus about it. So we agreed to submit the budget as proposed, as required, that not everybody wanted to do. Given the process that you outlined of the workshops, are we going to, at some point, have to discuss a revised budget up or down, or does council handle that from now on?
That's a procedural question that I don't know if I have the answer for, Brian. Lincoln will be presenting in that workshop process. No?
No.
Okay.
No,
All right.
There's no time for me.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. My apologies. I was under the impression that every department was going to be.
Yeah, I talked about this with Jessica.
Okay.
And I gave her the option, basically.
Okay.
Recognizing that other departments have a lot more at stake in this conversation. And so
Okay.
we're not presenting, but.
Okay. So in that case, what I would expect to happen is if we have radical changes to this budget, Lincoln has given me this, although I have this on file. we would be reporting back to Lincoln, and if there is cause to come back to you all with deep revisions, then we would absolutely. There's nothing that's gonna happen in the back room, to slash your budget, and then.
Wasn't suggesting that.
Yeah, but I don't, we will not be going back to every advisory board, as we make modifications to the budget. At some point, it will be a lay everything on the table exercise. But, and my apologies, Lincoln, I have not looked at who's on the schedule for the next month and a half. It looked like everybody was on the schedule for the next month. And a half.
Well, I may reappear, you don't know?
Yeah, hey, you know where to find us.
Thank you, Justin, for sitting in the hot seat. We appreciate it.
It's all good.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right.
Council member.
Anybody else have anything?
Answer.
All right,
Great.
thank you.
Okay, commissioners' reports.
I'll go first,
Good.
because I didn't do very much. I've been on vacation, so that's mine.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Well, I'll give a quick little report. So I was over here on Orcas for a couple nights earlier this week. And so I got a chance to go out to North Beach to, and something horse poop down the bottom of the trail. We talked about this on the prairie and later, if I how to see if I can get you going from that one.
Good.
But I was also
Takes more than that to get me.
Oh, that's good. Anyway, I'm so impressed with all the work you've done out
Thank you.
there. And it's gonna be really fun to watch it over the next, 2 to 5 years as it grows in. And that trail down, a lot of people aren't gonna be able to do that, that's for sure, but we've known that all along. Anyway, it's so beautiful. And then, of course, was up on Turtleback and I'm impressed with what's happening. So good work. Very good work. Yeah, hunting season on Lopez is open, not having any problems. I'm so happy about that. Amanda, thanks for what you're doing. I'm just so pleased with all the land bank preserves and all the work that's been done. Thank you.
Okay,
And I've just served on a couple committees. I'm on the finance committee and the communications committee, and I think when we do the outreach, we'll talk about the upcoming community conversation. In a couple, is that next week, week after, I forget.
okay. Online, commissioners, anybody?
I met with our finance committee with Anne Marie and staff yesterday, and just to review some of the information we'll discuss today and to just talk generally in terms of some of the bigger hits to our budget, such as the lack of money coming in from Fraser that we had anticipated. Trying to get a handle around what I understand it's called the Beaver Trail Project now, how that will impact our finances. And I've had a few conversations with various staff members regarding the Beaver Trail Project, trying to get a handle on how we got to the point where we are, and more importantly, trying to understand whether and in what way the commission will have responsibility in that project. I'm still not clear about that. But from Rachel Dietzman's memo to Lincoln that was provided in our meeting materials last night, it appears that the commissioners will be invited to at least tour the site and will therefore have some closer or better understanding of what the issues are going to be. So that's it, besides a whole bunch of walks on various preserves. And right now my goal is to find hills to climb. So may have to get over to Lopez Hill for the first time ever. And if anybody wants to join me on Turtleback sometime, I'd love to do that. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Marilyn.
Amy.
Okay, Amy, anything? No.
Nope, not this month. Thank you.
Okay, and I also have been on vacation, so nothing to report except that I came home and immediately had 2 house guests, one from California, one from southern Arizona, the Sonoran Desert. Now for something completely different. So I spent yesterday taking them on a whirlwind tour of as many Orcas preserves as I could. And also looking at all the recently completed work by Peter and Tyler on the Crescent Beach Preserve, on Judd Cove, and the new Turtleback parking lot. So as my wife always asks me when we go out, are you working or playing? So, anyway, everything looks really good, and they really enjoyed something completely different. Okay, that wraps up commissioners' report.
Marilyn.
Oh, Marilyn has something else.
I see Angela in the audience, and I just wanted to add that I did attend the Preservation Trust open house, which was really informative, and I was so impressed with the way it was put together so that there were sequential presentations regarding the work, including the new joint project with Mount Ben, presented by very knowledgeable staff. I was really, well, not only is the building beautiful, but the presentations were great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. Moving onward, we have a look at the proposed third amendment to the 24-25 biennial budget. Aaron, you want to take it?
Yeah, of course. Just remember to keep in mind a lot of discussion lately around the 26-27 budget. And now we have to shift back into our current year of focus and what we're doing and amending to this year's 2025 budget. This will be the final amendment on the county's 3 amended process, annual process during the year. For the Conservation Area Fund, in this third amendment, we're not making any changes. Impacts throughout the year that have added to the budget without being included are all on the revenue side. And the auditor's office through the amendment process typically doesn't feel the need to add those. Those are just gonna show up in ending cash. We do update the auditor's office on projected year-end numbers so that they're able to get a good head start on beginning and ending cash for the following year, but they don't necessarily include them in the budget. So if you are looking at the Conservation Area Fund and you see an ending cash number in there at $2.5 million, there's a couple projection updates for you that I'll just provide. One of those is we did receive $400,000 in a private donation to help with the Dolphin Bay Road acquisition. We did finally receive the grant revenue for Watt Mile Addition from PSAR and ALEA at $1.4 million. And then the other item of note for revenue that I'll mention is our REAP projection. You know, the budget, we projected 3.5 million. We are set to eclipse that this month. We're just under 3.5 as of today. So we're, we should be somewhere around 4 million, hopefully a little bit over. You can never really gauge December. We've seen that month vary a couple 100,000 year to year, you never know. But we're thinking around 400,000 for the end of the year. So projected ending cash in the Conservation Area Fund is around $4.9 million, $5 million in ending cash. So that's a projection.
Aaron, with the REIT increase, will that help us with the national park money that we're not gonna get or we don't expect to get?
Yeah, of course. The sale of land is not in the budget.
Right.
So although it's something we had anticipated receiving in the back of our minds, hopefully accounting for, it hasn't come, but it was never budgeted for, so we didn't make plans based on receiving those funds. So yes, going over budget is great. It does allow us the opportunity to get a couple projects started that we would typically do in early January. That might be professional services, cultural resource assessments, mostly reporting with consultants and things like that, that we might be able to shift a little bit of those projects into the end of the year here in 25, just because we know we're gonna exceed that amount. And typically our budget in stewardship also tends to be, we come in under budget pretty much every year. That's because we plan on hopefuls and things change, right? So it does allow us to shift some projects into 2025, especially knowing 26 and 27 in this environment in our country is pretty unknown. That's where we're seeing a nice little benefit. And we're able to also do that with that added protection of that 60% threshold in stewardship is still that barrier that we can't pass. So even though, yes, we're anticipating more revenue, doesn't mean we're gonna just break loose and spend another $200,000, $300,000. It's not, it doesn't work that way. So that 60% threshold still keeps us in reserve, but doesn't allow us to do some smaller projects.
Aaron, that land sale revenue is not in the 24-25 budget. But I forget, is it in the 26-27 or was it?
No, it is not in the 26 and 27 budget. I think that was gonna be something that was just gonna come in and be added to revenue.
Yeah, okay, so that's not anything that'll make us take a second look and alter that budget.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Marilyn has.
Marilyn.
Thank you. You probably can't get through a meeting without me griping about the way the county is on a cash basis system of accounting, and which means that revenues are recognized when they come in, and expenditures are recognized when they're made. In most cases, we don't have a lot, except for bonds, we don't have a lot of big money going out that doesn't show up in our financial statements because we just don't do that kind of thing. But I did ask Aaron yesterday at our meeting if he could provide us, if it's not too much trouble, with a small spreadsheet that shows us lists of grants that we may have applied for, those that have been awarded, and when they're anticipated to hit our books, and then any other activities such as we lost it, we're never going to get it. I think that helps us to understand what he just gave us in verbal version was what does not show here but is still anticipated. So if that's too much trouble, I'm hoping he can provide that with our financial statements. Thanks, Aaron.
Well, following up on that, I want to comment, so the Watmo addition grant funding, I know it was a lot of work to finally get that, and I'm so glad we got it. So I just want to say good job on that. And I guess maybe that's a case in point why we don't get it in there until we actually see it.
Yeah, that was in our 2024 budget. That's when we anticipated receiving that, and then hiccups come, questions come, and, just commend Erin Halcomb on bringing that thing to the finish line. She put
It's a lot of work.
a ton of work in to get that there, so
Yeah.
just commending her, even though she's.
Go ahead.
And one other, so we don't often get private donations. Those usually go to Preservation Trust, and which makes total sense, but how do we acknowledge those? Do we have a chance to know who? Do we acknowledge it in any way? Because that's a big private donation for the Dolphin Bay acquisition, private donation.
Yeah,
$400,000.
I won't go there, if it's gonna typically depends on donors, whether they wanna be anonymous or not, and I'm not in those conversations, those are much more through Lincoln, so when I'm doing my reporting,
Well, that makes sense.
I don't acknowledge it, so.
Yeah, and in this case, I don't think there's a desire for public acknowledgement. Certainly, I've talked to the donor a number of times and profusely thanked he and his wife for making the donation.
Oh, I wonder who it is, but, okay, good.
Yeah, we have
Well,
had
I just
acquisition.
appreciate it
Yeah.
because it's not so common for the land bank as it is for Preservation Trust.
Yeah, we have had some big land acquisitions in the past where, we were able to acknowledge the donor, but it's case by case.
I think that was a really good question though, and I'm not sure that you were talking about public acknowledgement, but I wonder, profuse thanks aside, I wonder if something shouldn't come on paper from the commission.
Yeah,
That I think would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's, who would like to draft some? Would you draft something?
Sure.
For us
that'd
to
be great.
sign?
Then we could all sign it.
Yeah,
That'd be
that'd
good.
be great.
I just want to support Peggy's idea of, and Brian's idea of thanks. I wanted to mention that I was up at the top of the Goldenback Trail last week looking for hills to climb and ran into the man, Paul Reese, who donated that property to the land bank. We had quite a long conversation about it, and I was able to thank him profusely, is the term, for his contribution. So it's sort of an odd way to get to thank a donor, but if you're out on the trails, maybe you can do it.
So just from a tax perspective, what do they receive from the county for this contribution?
It's just like making a charitable donation.
So that the county sends out something that acknowledges the fact that
Yeah.
they need that. So does that come out of the auditor's office? Good question.
I think we'll be asked to write the letter.
Okay,
So,
okay. Because that, normally that would be the process. You'd write the letter thanking them and it
Right.
indicates that it's a charitable contribution.
yeah, I think they'll probably supply me with a letter
Mhm.
to sign,
Okay,
acknowledging that.
the donor will or
The donor will, through their attorney, to make sure it
Okay.
satisfies what they need.
We do, when we get smaller donations that come through, most often, through like Sailor Seed Project, we will, Tanya or Eliza will send, a receipt,
Gotcha.
a charitable donation, receipt acknowledgement for them, but with the larger programs, usually a lawyer or someone reaches out. Okay, so like I said, that's it for the conservation area fund. No changes. Just wanted to give you a little bit of projection.
Great.
Moving on to the stewardship, management and maintenance fund. The only changes to the budget are for the Beaverton Trail project. We needed to get, Rachel, our special project, Rachel Dietzman, our special project manager for this position into the budget since she started now. You guys did see it as an added position for the 26-27 budget also, but we had to add that here. That is a grant funded position. Just like the rest of the expenses, we will still have to pay a match to the project as a whole and whatever we seek reimbursement in the amount of 13.5%. So that's indicated here as grant revenue. We added the revenue to compensate for the added position and also the consultant Bowman gave us a projected billable through the end of 2025 in the amount of $520,000. From our understanding, there's a lot of people already working to hit the ground running. They're expected to get to 30% design phase in December. So a lot of work going in right now, and we needed to make sure that the budget allowed for that type of spending. So we included that into the budget here. And again, at this point, the stage of this Beaverton Trail project, the PE phase, which is the project engineering and design phase, we are under contract with Bowman for that. And whatever expenses we have there through that phase, we are required to have a 13.5% match. So for the total, the maximum not to exceed will be around 190,000 maximum. We're hoping and expecting, and I've already seen at this early stage aspects of that contract projected budget areas where we already know there's some trimming. So the expectation is hope is that we're not going to be spending that total amount. That contract is a number not to exceed. So ultimately, our contribution through this first phase of obligation, we anticipate being less than that max, but that would be the max contribution from the land bank.
And some of that will be in kind.
In kind, yes.
Okay, that's And that max again is what,
13.5%
13.5%?
and roughly 190,000 through to September of 26.
That is in this budget, the 2025 or in 2026?
It's in both, the
Okay.
520 just through the end of this year, and then the rest is through all the way leading up to 2026
Okay,
construction phase. So those were the only budget amendments to this 2025 budget in the stewardship fund.
In terms of, what kind of commitment do we have that will not exceed? So you're saying, well, you say right here, not to exceed 190,000.
Mhm.
What if it does? I mean,
Well, it's a contract. We are under contract for the engineering phase. It's a number not to exceed. They can't bill over that.
okay, so then they eat it if it goes over.
I would assume there's amendment and modification options available, but we are not required.
Okay.
Those would be negotiations, and whether the county feels like whatever is being added, what we are paying them for, we're receiving more outside of what is the established scope. That's typically how contracting in the county works. In order for an amendment to go through, and us to give them more money, they need to provide more for us. It can't just be like, hey, it costs more to do this, give us more money. It's all part of the negotiation.
Okay.
And that's it for the 2020, and I see Marilyn.
Just two quick things, and you and Lincoln have already heard this. I'm just speaking to the commission. What Aaron just referred to, of course, is just the design contract, not there's a separate amount of money that will be required to match the construction of 13.5%. Because we have a project manager on site on this project working with the consultants, we don't expect to in any way exceed the contract of time and materials, which is what they're billing us for. So we should not be, as Aaron just said, we should be able to bring this under that amount. And then I just wanted, Lincoln, you've used the term a number of times, and I just hoped you could define it for us. In-kind contributions. Can you tell us what those would be up until this point, what that means? Thank you.
Yeah, it will be staff time. So up to this point, Doug McCutcheon has spent a huge amount of time on this project. So we'll be submitting for that. And we'll be continuing to spend staff time on the project and submitting for that as well. Is that good?
Yeah, thanks. But they might otherwise have been painting your office. Just wanted to point out that staff time used on this project is an in-kind contribution. It's also takes away from a different, whatever their normal course of activity would be.
True.
Thank you.
okay.
And that's the 30-minute budget.
All right, Aaron, thank you. We now have a public hearing on the third amendment to the 2025 budget. So I will open the public hearing and followed by any additional discussion and consideration by the commission. Public hearing is open. Any comments on the present budget that we're considering? Hearing none. I'll close the public hearing. And commissioners, any additional comments, discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote or a motion rather, to approve the third amendment to the 2025 biennial budget.
Oh, you make a motion to approve the 2024 third amended budget.
Thank you, Tim.
25.
Yes.
Second, Anne Marie. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The third amendment to the 2025 budget is approved. Thank you. Okay, Aaron, you want to continue with the financial report?
Sure. Thanks again for following along. I know this has been a lot of finance in the last couple months. I've felt it myself, so I can only imagine how you guys are receiving it.
More to come.
So next we're moving on to the third quarter financial statement. This is a project that we have undertaken with the finance subcommittee to update how we share our third quarter or our quarterly reports and showing the material that we're most concerned about and making it as easy as possible for the public and the commission to digest. I'm gonna try and share. Would you like to have it up on the screen? Okay. Normally we have two computers doing this, so I'm gonna see if I can get it all up. Share. Okay, this is the best I can do. Okay. I hope that works all right for you guys. So we still have the standard top portion balance sheet, which shows second quarter to third quarter cash flow changes. We've still felt like that was important to show. We have conservation area fund, stewardship fund, and endowment fund. The total for land bank funds at the end of the third quarter sits at just over 13 million in total. 8.6 million of that is the endowment fund. So that leaves 4.7 in cash on hand.
And endowment is AKA reserve.
AKA reserve, that is for future property management. We did add the real property total value, taxable value, added in from the previous draft that I showed you. That was something requested to show. This is a number that only gets updated once a year. Lincoln goes through and does taxable assessment, and then we will update this number on an annual basis. Liabilities, long-term liabilities, at this point, we don't have any interfund loans anymore. Those have been fulfilled. We currently just have 4 bonds, 3 of which will be fulfilled at the end of next year. Yes, end of next year, 2026, and we will just carry forward the conservation futures bond, which ties in Turtleback through 2036. So 2 years before the end of our reauthorization period, all bonds and long-term debt held by the land bank will be paid off. So that will be much less of a payment in 2027 and forward. So continue to watch that. So that's it for the balance sheet and cash flow. Moving into revenues and expenditures, taking the opportunity to kind of look at the land bank as a whole and not separating the two funds. We have a quarterly update, and then the request was to show a percentage of budget. Before I get into the numbers here and point out some highlights, I would just say it's my recommendation that we continue to look at this expenditure, this revenue and expenditure section. I think it could still use a little bit of work. Percentage of budget, since we do have 2 funds, when you combine them, you're combining two different funds, trying to figure out, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it takes a long time to pull that together. So how much we really get out of that, you know, we can still play around with a little bit. Just a suggestion. There is some good information that I gleaned from that, but
So how does that information help the commission? I mean, and that's a question to the commissioners.
yeah.
You know, like, is that
Let's hear
percent
from-
of
let's hear
budget?
From Marilyn. Cause Marilyn, you've been pushing for this, right?
Well, I just want to thank you, Erin, for presenting this sort of consolidated version. I think it's much easier for commissioners to absorb, first of all, fewer numbers. The most important thing to me, of course, is what the year-to-date is. And I do think it's important to look at year-to-date revenue and expenditures versus budget. I'm sorry that it's a pain in the butt to pull it together, but you know, it's good information to know that we've spent through Q3 42% of our property management and maintenance, that we have, you know, a lot of money left in that fund that hasn't been spent and may not be spent. I think those are the kinds of things that are important for us to be able to digest without looking so much at the interfund activity that exists because we have these two funds. And again, Erin, I know how hard you've worked on this, so thank you very much. I am interested to know whether the commission, you know, what it is we see in here that we most want to know about. And Mike might want to weigh in on that because he's discussed this in the past.
I haven't looked closely at this, but
Okay.
right off the top, it looks useful to me.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go, and I just wanted to lead off with that, so as you kind of digest this document and the numbers we go over, feedback is great because we're gonna continue to try and refine to the point that we're all satisfied with. So I'm gonna get into some revenues and expenditures for the land bank in third quarter. We did take in 1.6 million in REIT revenue. On the right, you see our REIT chart year to date. Through September, we're at 3.2 million total. You can see where that compares to 22 through 24 at this time. So much better than 23 and 24 were. We do know that 20 through 22 were really strong during COVID. Those were the big years, and then it tapered down a little bit. And we're seeing a nice little jump up in 2025. So happy to see that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that we've jumped up as much as we have.
I
Because
think we all are.
yeah, I thought real estate was kind of stagnant for a while, but it seems to be
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, as you can see, it looks like it had a little bit of a formatting issue for August there, but 600,000 in August in 2025 is our largest August we've ever had. Who would have known?
Were there a couple really big?
Yes,
weeks
There were. There was one, I think the last day of the month, we had like a $200,000 day, so $20 million in recordings in one day. One property, and then I believe a week later or a few days later, there was another one, but that was in September. So then we started out September really well. So it just goes to show how volatile this can be. We're seeing on average sales that impact the land bank here range from 30 to 40 a month, which really isn't that many. And maybe one or two a month, if you're lucky, are really big sales. And all of a sudden you can see this month where it's like, oh boy, we might only have $100,000 in REIT revenue, and then bam, you're setting a record. So it's this volatile.
The other thing that's great about it is what we learned from the REIT kind of process was that these people that are buying land are really supportive of this kind of contribution.
Right, the buyers.
The buyers really like the land bank, so. That's great. They're a different category.
Yeah, completely. And, you know, our county continues to be a cash market. And we don't see a lot of that changing currently, so, it's kind of helpful, that we're in that type of market here in the county. Moving on to LGIP interest, that's local government investment pool, that's where all of our cash reserves are being held currently. We do not have any outside investments into treasuries and bonds at this time. It is something we are, the finance committee, Lincoln and I are gonna start looking at the beginning of next year, knowing that the Fed rate, they anticipate dropping it probably about a 1.5% over the next 2 years. So that's gonna continue to drop. But we're also seeing long-term, 2-3 year bond yields, leveling out around the same yield as short-term 3-6 month yields, which hasn't been seen in 9 years, I believe is what TVI was telling us. So it's a good opportunity to start looking into moving some money into bonds and treasuries. And, you know, there's investment restrictions and policies within the county. We can't go 5 years, 3 years is the max. 60% of your cash reserve at max. So there's limitations, but it's something we're gonna look into, to balance out when we start to see that LGIP interest rate drop. Bonds and treasuries should help keep that yield up higher for us overall being diversified. It's a good time to be jumping into that. So we're gonna look at that at the beginning of the year. But right now, interest rate has been really good for us. It's around 4.5%. As you can see, combined for the land bank, we have received just over 400,000 in interest revenue on the year. That's not small potatoes. It's, you know, by keeping a lot of our cash in there, we're at a good rate. We're doing pretty well there. So wanted to point that out. Donations, third quarter, that's where we received that private donation for Dolphin Bay Road. Let's see if I can. Okay, so for expenditures, administration, and conservation area fund and stewardship wages, those are on track. Those are in the budget. If you're ever wanting to know how much we anticipate as a whole, those are there. They're always going to be around 100%. So those numbers continue to track as normal. Acquisition costs, the third quarter was for the Dolphin Bay Road acquisition. As a whole, the 3.62 or 3.6, that includes the Dolphin Bay Road acquisition at 3.3 and the final payment to the house on the Hauschka Katy Mountain promissory note was made, and that was in the amount of 200,000. So that was fulfilled in the second quarter. So that's what makes up that total for acquisition costs. Debt payment, again, those happen biannually, so twice a year. The next time we'll see a debt payment there will be in November, is typically when we see that show up.
Aaron, you pay interest and principal in November and just interest in May, is that right?
Correct. And that's on the bonds that she's referring to. And then finally, property management maintenance and site enhancement. Again, by the end of the third quarter, all the work that was done in the summer, contracted, capital expenses, probably a bulk of these payments you're gonna see in that fourth quarter, because through the third quarter, you start to see some of those billings trickle in from a lot of the work that had been done in the summer on our preserves. We're gonna see a much larger jump on those expenditures, getting closer to our budgeted numbers in the fourth quarter. Starting to see a lot of those come in here this month. The way we're tracking, we should be in that 86% range of what we budgeted, which is what, again, I think I mentioned earlier, with the additional REAP revenue that we're receiving, we're adding a few other projects in because we have the capacity in tracking projects that are completed, where they're at in what stage. So you'll see those numbers jump in the fourth quarter, but currently they still remain pretty low. And that's the
Yay!
update.
I think we need to applaud personally, because I am so impressed that we were able to get a simple, straightforward, easy to understand report in front of the commission, and Aaron really had to work hard to make this happen. I just want to point out, my very favorite thing is probably being able to see what's currently in the reserve fund, just at a quick glance. I can see we've got a bunch of, I can see exactly what's going on. I do want to ask the commission if there is any use for them. It's a suggestion I have, that we continue to see REIT as a separate line item rather than combined with taxes, i.e. REIT taxes and then other taxes on this form, only because that is our number one thing that we look at.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Wait,
Yeah.
let's be clear, which is a good idea?
Yeah,
To see them broken out.
Yeah, I agree.
I do also.
I mean, we can do both, actually.
Mhm.
We can have them broken out and have a total.
Well,
Right.
for simplicity's sake, I don't know if I'm still audible. I would just add one more line, pulling REIT out of the combined taxes, if that, well, I know it's not difficult. We can see the same information over in the other chart, but this is probably the number one thing that we look at. So it would be nice to highlight it. And I wanted to speak again about the percentage of budget. When I look at something like this, my eye immediately goes to where are we really over budget and where are we really under budget. And being able to see this so simply really helps a lot. Your explanation, both written and verbal, is really helpful, but it does help us to focus, I think. Thank you again.
Very useful. I agree.
Good.
Yeah. So, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Marilyn.
Yeah, thank you.
And Anne Marie.
And Anne Marie, sorry. Okay. Now, where are we? We're at a break, so. And
Break time.
it is, 10, let's see, yeah, we're right about on time. So let's take 8 minutes and come back at 10 past.
We're like measles in Texas.
We are back and we are up to the director's report. Lincoln.
All right, so to start out, I think you all have heard about the Blakely acquisition. So 225 acres inside of Blakely Island through the Trust Land Transfer Program. So at no cost to the county. This is our, I don't know, Tanya and I always go through this. How many preserves do we have now? How many are open to the public? I think it's 40, could be 41. But this is a preserve that's not going to have public access, open public access anyway, because of it's accessed through a big private property. And none of us have actually been on it yet. So we're trying to set that up. And we have heard from the Tom Crowley, who is the owner of the majority of Blakely Island. So he's very excited about us having ownership and wants to put us in touch with his caretakers, and they're familiar with the property. So we'll get out there at some point, which is just, great.
Isn't there a conservation easement on that whole?
Yes.
Yes, Preservation Trust holds a conservation easement over that, and I think the total is maybe, well, may not, it's about 2,300 acres total, I think, of Blakely, but part of that is the preserve that you own as well. Anyway, no numbers. Blakely has a lot of conservation. It's great.
And I'm happy to say that we've had initially a very warm welcome over there. I went over there, not to that property, but at the invitation of a Blakely resident. couple weeks ago with a few other people kind of touring the island. And yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm for it. I'm surprised.
Happy.
So that is, there is actually one last little sliver of school trust land left in the county of the 2,480 acres they owned, which is also on Blakely, so we're looking into that. But of the rest of it, all but 40 acres has been permanently conserved. So amazing accomplishment. I really hope we can have an event to commemorate that in the spring, because there have been a lot of agencies involved. Well, the federal agencies, state, local, everybody. Be really nice to get together and celebrate that accomplishment. That does bring me to this preserved names question, because we have this preserve. And we also have the property we bought from John Cherry. And we alternately called that one Dolphin Bay Road, Dolphin Bay Preserve. Well, there's no dolphins. So it's, you've hopefully had a chance to take a look at the naming policy, the various avenues we have laid out to try and arrive at a name for properties. We may not have any good answers on either of these, and Blakely may just be the Blakely Island Preserve. That's totally possible. The other one, it's a little bit more uncertain, and we just don't have any, there's nothing really to go on. We don't have any geological feature. We don't have any great historical reference. We don't, it's just an open book, really. But I'm just throwing this out there for you all to think about, take a look at the naming policy. It's possible we might want to have an open process to try and arrive at a name. I say that with some hesitation, remembering that British ship naming contest, which ended up with Bodie McBoatface as the name. So people tend not to take those things seriously sometimes. So anyway, just putting that out there, we should continue to think about it.
So we have probably at least a year before we open that preserve to the public, and during which we'll, I would guess, be doing a preserve management plan.
Yeah.
That should be part of that process, I would think. So all of which is to say, we've got some time. Right?
Right. Less time than you think, but.
Yeah, well, time does fly.
And, you know, names do get locked in. The longer we
Yes.
call it Dolphin Bay, the
Right.
more it becomes Dolphin Bay.
Yeah, I've been remiss in not proposing some better names, but
Well,
You've got
would
some
you,
ideas?
move the timing up? Because, I mean, I would look to some locals, some ideas. I have no idea.
a great winter project.
Marilyn has her hand up.
Well, I just want to support the idea of asking for ideas and doing it more quickly. I agree, it does get locked in, but I think that local people might have or you know, any island people might have a better idea than we would come up with.
I looked at the place names for indigenous people. It was very vague and not necessarily very useful. For Blakely, apparently most of the uses were up in the bay rather than down at the southeast corner. However, the name that was on the places map translated to place to gather nettles.
I thought it was Horsetail.
Horsetail, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. The other thought I had was that it is right on Rosario Strait, so I thought of Straits View for about half a second. And Rosario Headlands was another possibility, but only because there's a lack of other possibilities.
Yeah, there's,
There might be something around the salmon too, and the fact that it's kind of one of the last places.
What do you mean?
Well,
The last.
there's not gonna be a lot of salmon in the future here. And anything we preserve that has kind of breeding grounds and herring and stuff like that is important.
There's some
It's
ideas.
all up for discussion. So, we can take we can come back to this again. Maybe we'll come back to this at the retreat. Might be a good. So.
Good idea.
I see nobody's touching the Dolphin Bay property.
Yeah.
Oh, the place name for that was scattered reef netting.
Oh,
Oh, I was thinking about the salmon for
oh,
for Dolphin
Dolphin
Bay.
Bay, I thought
Yeah,
you were-
yeah.
Salmon money.
Yeah.
uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. Yes, we have the place names identified from one tribe. Yes.
Just
And
one.
that's the issue. It's like, well, do the other tribes agree with this name?
Yeah.
It opens a lot of room for discussion and debate, argument.
Kiss method. Keep it simple.
Just
I agree.
just something to bear in mind. Okay, moving on to the Watmount grant, we already noted that we've finally gotten that through the door. It's not the full 1.5, it's 1.43 or something like that. I think we're still gonna get at least another 30,000-40,000 toward the total. Because we hadn't accounted for staff time as a match. So we're doing that now, but at least we got the bulk of it.
Was that federal money?
No, well, part of it was salmon recovery funding.
So
So it's kind of unclear to me, honestly, how that flows and where it flows from. The other part of it was the aquatic lands enhancement account. That was the $1 million part of it,
Okay,
and that's what state. Okay, so there's that. And then I put on here the procedural change proposals, because that's the most obscure possible reference that you might encounter. This
Policy.
this relates back to, we've had an ongoing discussion through the course of this year about the land bank and its structure and whether we need to do things differently. What our processes look like, and are there changes we want to make? We've had this facilitated. Amazingly, highly capable facilitator appeared out of nowhere to do this for free for us. And so at this point, we've kind of come down to a few things, a few different areas that people are focused on. One is the mission cohesion area, where we know we have statutory requirements. We also we've got our local ordinance and what's in the ordinance, but we have a lot of information from the community, certainly following up on this campaign and all the polling that had been done before. We learned from the community, what they're interested in seeing from us. And so the question is not really changing the mission, it's about what we should be emphasizing or maybe de-emphasizing, because the mission is so broad. So that group has been having that conversation. I think we're going to have to come back to the policy manual, which is so greatly in need of being updated. It's way out of date, I think. I think Peggy wrote it in 1995. So we need to revisit that question. But I think the mission cohesion question probably will come back to you all at the retreat, because that's certainly something that the commission really needs to take on as well. Communications is another piece of this, because I think we've had a lot of not necessarily communications breakdown, but I think there are certainly some staff people who get surprised by things they didn't hear about. They didn't come to this meeting, you know, what information was relayed to them, and who it's relayed through. So we're trying to revise, those processes, for greater transparency, internal transparency. And then role clarity and accountability, since we've got a very flat structure, there's kind of informal, arrangements that are made, like between, preserve stewards and field assistants. You know, if I'm supposed to do a performance evaluation on a field assistant and I'm not working with them on a daily basis, it's kind of ridiculous. So I think that the idea there is to really change how that process works, to bring more people into it, broaden it. And I think that's another big theme that's emerged out of our internal conversations. The issue of siloing, that within stewardship, we've got districts, and typically the districts have done their own thing. They come up with their own projects. They've, you know, pursue that. They're judging themselves on their own metric. And I think the issue really is that needs to be organization wide. So we need to have a lot more interplay between the districts to make sure that our standards are similar, that we're not doing things in some districts which may set a precedent for other districts, even though they don't, you know, agree to that idea. So right now, what we're looking at doing is creating a kind of a senior management group for stewardship to really make better and more and broader decisions about stewardship projects and other projects. So we're going to try and create that and actually charter that group. That was one approach. Another approach was to create a stewardship manager position. We're not really in a situation budget-wise where we can do that now. So I think this is kind of an alternate, which we're going to try and see how this works. It may be that we get in big arguments and it doesn't work. We won't know until we try. But I think it will certainly create a lot more discussion and a lot more collaboration across district lines. So that's where we're headed on that. And you'll hear more about this as we go along.
When you say charter that group, if there was a stewardship, senior management stewardship group, and you said you might charter that group, make it official somehow in our charter that we have that.
I think the idea is to lay out the ground rules for that group. How is it going to work? How are decisions going to be made? How often is it going to meet? What is it responsible for? So just laying those things out in a concrete fashion, so we're as clear as we can be.
So, I was just wondering, there are other entities in the county government that, have large staffs located on different islands, right? Like, I think of Public Works, but I'm not sure if they're all on the same island.
Mhm.
Are there any structures within the county government that would work for us? You guys have probably already looked at this, but I just, in terms of recreating everything, you know, are there any opportunities there or things that Jessica saw from her experiences in Virginia? You know what I mean? Like anything like that could, so it would be great to get this up and going in 26 and not be talking about it at the 26 retreat.
Absolutely. And that's our.
I'm just trying to get us there.
Yeah, I don't really see in other county departments any good parallels, quite honestly. I have talked to Jessica about this a fair amount. So I think we're we're kind of where we are, and we're grateful to have our facilitator to help.
Yeah.
He's, really been an amazing, asset to us. So.
It's great.
Question.
Marilyn,
Just a comment. I think the idea of having a stewardship management group, which I assume would not include everybody in the entire stewardship, but it could. We're a small organization. But I think and trying to work across ferry lines is super important. I have always said that there's more that we can learn from each other than we can from looking outside. And the idea of having stewardship groups work or at least be aware of, and I'm not sure how you're envisioning this, but if they were aware of and commenting on projects or problems, I think that's a fabulous idea and I support it.
Great. Well, more to come on that.
Are we gonna get a chance to meet this fabulous guy?
Possibly.
Consultant?
Would you like to?
I don't know, I mean, he sounds like he's been so helpful.
Yeah.
For this
yeah,
process.
He really has been. And you never know how those things are gonna go. Are people,
Right,
how
when they
people are gonna
volunteer.
react to someone coming in from the outside, and
Right.
it's been a really pretty positive reaction to him.
Yeah.
Which frankly surprised me a little, but it's good.
so I would just say, leading into your next topic, that, and Lincoln and I had a brief discussion about this yesterday. We've had, Peggy and I particularly as a subcommittee have had periodic meetings and updates with Lincoln about this, although not in some time.
Yeah.
The commission as a whole hasn't really heard a lot about the process so far, so thanks for that update, Lincoln. But I would propose that this is maybe the most important topic for the land bank now, and ought to be a featured topic, as you suggested, on our annual retreat, and have really a full report. I personally would love to hear the staff point of view of that summary of those discussions and how the staff feels about it. So I think that ought to be on our retreat.
I would agree with that. I think it needs to be really time limited. And I kind of think the same way about the consultant, because I'm assuming, based on the fact that this was kind of talked about at the last retreat last year, that was an item that came up, that there's a large group of people that have spent time on this. And so I would kind of say, give us a recap and let's make it happen. Figure out how we make it happen. What has to happen at every kind of quarter or month, and what are we doing to break down the conflicts? You know, when conflicts arrive, where are some of the areas that we have really, really good cohesive teams that, you know, here's our management plans, and we all do the management plans the same way, you know, except if there's, you know what I mean? So that these are the areas that we all agree on.
Right.
You know, and these are the areas that we're gonna work on, and this is how we're gonna do it.
I think we'll be able to do that. Okay, anything else on that?
Thank you.
I don't have a strong opinion on this.
Obviously not.
I agree, though. I told Lincoln, I would like to see this resolved and on its way while I'm still on the commission.
Right.
So, that's a piece of the retreat. And I think the mission cohesion discussion is part of the retreat. Are there other topics that people are thinking of? I'm not meaning to put people
Naming policy,
on naming
Name-
policy.
or naming our properties.
We can talk about
That would be kind of a fun thing.
So if there's anything else that people are thinking of, this is the time to really start to queue it up. So anything that's been on your mind, you could speak now, you can email me, but we need to really start nailing this down. We do have December 19th identified as the retreat date. We do have John Howell lined up to facilitate. And it's probably going to be on San Juan.
And half day. Half day all
Yeah,
day.
probably, 9 to 2, something like that.
Okay, so we can make it.
Well, I would suggest, and this is kind of off the top of my head, but in view of your suggestion about relooking at the policy manual and organizational changes, we might take a look at and review our strategic plan
Right.
and the progress that we've made and any tweaks we might want to make for the next year.
Yeah, I think part of any retreat will be a recap of what's happened over the course of the year, and a part of that certainly is taking a look at the strategic plan and what we've managed to tick off in the course of the year.
And hopefully establishing the next action items.
Right.
Well, I want to think about this a little bit more in terms of topics, but, like who are our partners? How can we strengthen those and support those partnerships? I don't know if we want to continue to focus on that, but that's just coming to mind right now. And then I always have the tribal, like, how can we do this? Because we really haven't made any progress in terms of tribal partnerships. And in my mind, part of our challenge is the county policy. And I was just telling Angela, I'm so pleased to see what they're doing right now. I continue to want to make some progress on that
Yeah, I
don't
guess
know
I
if you-
don't know what the definition of progress in tribal relations is.
project. For me, how can we get to the point where we actually have some partner projects? With some of the tribes, and maybe we won't, and maybe we'll, that's a partnership kind of thing, and Preservation Trust can do it so much more easily than we can. I don't know.
Well, I think we have made progress. We may not have partnerships, but what I've seen is a lot more interaction with the tribes on projects that we have, a lot more engagement from them, which historically you send a letter, you get nothing.
Right.
Well, we're on the phone with them, we're doing video calls, and we had this call around Crescent Beach and the forestry project that went on. So we're getting a lot more feedback now. And we've just had a variety of interactions with tribes on a number of different levels. Whether that results in some official partnership, I don't know, but it's very different than it has been in the past.
Well, that sounds really terrific.
Yeah, that's great.
I agree, and it's different, it's gotten better.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe I just don't know enough about, like, where we're interacting and interfacing.
Yeah.
Because when we talked about it, it's like government to government, and we have to go through that process, and and I know that staff are working one-on-one, and whether the county has blessed that process or not, I don't know, but I'm glad we're making some progress. And
I think a concrete example is, Southern Alpines kind of established more or less this template letter that now goes out to the tribes when we acquire new property, inviting participation, and that's become practice, in the last year or so.
Yeah, and they're
responsive.
And they're responsive. Yeah, I've had a lot of responses this year on our offering of information.
Yay. So maybe
It's kind of, it's like a different track, the county process, government to government process is, inching forward, and our
We're just
more
together.
kind of staff to staff interactions, and then the formal letters going out, that's been moving forward,
Good.
My guess is that what now is gonna be an opportunity, and perhaps a challenge.
Let us know how that goes, Amanda.
That's all up to you.
What, hey, Lincoln, what's the date and how many hours do we have assigned to this retreat?
December 19th.
Yeah,
And roughly 5 hours or ending, let's put it this way, ending at 2 around ferry schedules. Maybe
It-
2:30.
yeah, it seems to me that with the topics that have been raised here, discussions raised here, that we're gonna be pressured to get everything into 5 hours. I mean, the retreat is generally a pretty big deal,
Yeah.
time consuming.
Absolutely. So, I'll be working with Brian and John Howell to almost certainly pare down and shape the agenda so that we can have more assurance of covering some topics. I agree with you. I think it's better for us to focus on fewer topics and have a more thorough discussion than having too many.
And having it somewhat centered around our retreat before, the big picture stuff that we bought into a year or two ago, and how are we doing against that?
Right.
Hey, Lincoln, this is Amy. I just want to ask the question, is it possible to do it the week before? I mean, the 19th is getting really close to the holidays. I was planning to be signed off by then, because this has been such a completely insane year for dealing with the federal government and beyond. So, I mean, not to say that I can't make the 19th, but if we're going to go for the majority of a day, is the 12th possible? I just wanted to ask. Thanks.
We haven't explored that. So we can try. I don't know how other people feel about
We could
that.
take a poll right now.
So wait for much.
Either one works for me.
Yeah,
All right,
that works for me.
we'll do some kind of polling and come back to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And that's it for me.
All right, we have a stewardship report. And we have a couple of stewards here. They're both-
Okay, here from Lopez. What do I have to report on? We wrote the stewardship report. We finished our repairs at Weeks Wetlands. You can now sit on the platform again and enjoy the view, bird watching. We shrunk it pretty significantly just to save on time, materials, and just something simpler, and it still kind of accomplishes having that viewpoint and platform. So that felt like a big project to complete. And working with Claire has been great, and Claire has 2 more weeks. So
She's seasonal, is that right?
she's seasonal,
Yeah.
part-time.
Does she live permanently on the island?
Yeah, she lives permanently. She has the next job lined up. She's gonna do some carpentry, and now she's got a little more skills to bring to her next job.
Thank you.
I think so.
Peter?
I was just thinking that pictures are worth 1,000 words. So, yeah, as we're kind of like, entering this fiscal, kind of tightening, so, something like 2022 and 2027. So Orcus, I've been kind of focused over the last years on kind of dealing with our liabilities and vulnerabilities mostly. So that, this is money and time spent. I mean, the curve has been something like this, and we're kind of in here. So this summer we had a cluster of projects, the forest thinning project that was grant funded. So it's, not reflected in the money part, but in the time we had, the Turtleback parking lot thing. had the Judd Cove shoreline, also grant funded, and then the, Caulfield septic. So, going back here, it was kind of like Caulfield riparian planting, we had this unprotected riparian zone, so fenced in planted. And then it was turtleback culverts, and then it was turtleback road decommissioning, and then it was North Shore, And so now we're coming down here and we've got just a couple things that I see remaining. One is, the, Fowler's Pond Dam, kind of controls and issues there. One is the East Sound Waterfront Park, which is fortunately funded by the Preservation Trust, which was gonna happen this summer, got delayed till next year. And then,
Preservation Trust, or is it the
did I say Preservation Trust?
Yeah, friends.
Good job. Friends of the San Juans, Friends of the San Juan, yeah. Friends of the San Juans did that, got the funding for that. I'm sure you know. So. And then what was the other one? There's, let's see, so we've got Fowler's, oh yeah, and probably the most important one in my mind is the culverts at Judd Cove. So we're climbing down, we're coming down fast, not quite done, but I think at the end of this, unless we buy some other really complicated property.
Well, Cherry.
We've got Cherry.
Well, but that's here, that's easy, yeah, but yeah, these are all things that were either, disasters in the making, culverts, roads washing out, things like that, things that didn't look good, unbuffered, unfenced riparian zone with cows in the creek. So anyway, we're almost done. And I know that my expenditures on Orcas have caught some attention, well, it's money. But anyway, we're getting to the end.
It's been worth it.
All those things, required permits and plans and, contracts. It's been a huge team effort. Aaron Brock's been really great.
It's just, having worked as a seasonal part-time field assistant during those 3 years, it's phenomenal what Peter has gotten done.
She was planted to say that.
And quality, no, it wasn't, but the quality of the work and the thoroughness, and it's pretty amazing.
Here.
Thank you.
And Peter didn't even mention the restoration on the North Shore.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of, I mean, that's kind of capturing.
That's the big
liability.
turn. North Shore.
Yeah, but tons of public outreach, thanks to Tanya and Aaron Halcom has helped a lot with that, all the contracts and invoicing and everything, Aaron's been a huge help with that, so, and Tyler's done a great job.
So you're suggesting you're just gonna be taken back?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
That's why I came on a motorcycle today.
Yeah, I'm taking back, starting in 2027. But just stay the course for the Judd Cove culverts project. We gotta get that one done. That's my stewardship report.
Those have been done. No, that's great.
Well, we did the shoreline, but the culverts are a real problem.
And we might try and stop by there if we have time.
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I thought it all looked great yesterday.
Yeah, and things worked out really well this summer from a bid standpoint. We got some really good deals. The bidding, we got very low bids with a huge gap to the next bid. We managed to work with those contractors. So, all those projects came in way
Why did
under.
you get these really low?
I mean, it's the luck of the draw a little bit. I mean, I like to say that I planned it that way, by hammering on the bidders, like this is a cheap project, don't overbid. But also, it creates more stress when you're dealing with low bid
Right.
projects, but they all worked out well.
Oh, thanks for your work.
Yes.
So thanks for standing behind it all, Lincoln, not questioning it too much.
And Aaron, can't you give us some useful graphics like this?
I'll just contract with Peter to do it all. When he's kicked back, I'll give him some work.
We're just gonna fine tune here. We haven't had much time to fine tune.
All right, and I don't know whether we have an outreach and communications report, our outreach person.
Well, we should talk a little bit about the
Community
upcoming
conversation.
Community conversation.
Yes.
Before we do that, I just wanna, you've got the memo from Rachel Dietzman on the project and how it's going. And I will say it's kind of like
Yeah.
being a basketball team and having some superstar agent become available and fall into your lap. She's gonna be great. It's perfect
very
fit for this project, so.
We're lucky.
Another great person.
What's her background?
But for the county,
She's an engineer, and she was the county engineer for a period.
Oh,
So she's got a long experience. She came out of retirement to do this
wow.
project. So. Yeah, it's great. Community conversation. We've got some updates that we'll be presenting on all the things that we talk about to the community, and then opening it up for questions. I don't think we have any particular burning issue that we're going to be focused on, but we're scheduled for the 28th, 5:30 to 6:30.
something else that's happening that day, but I think it's during the day with some county related. I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
That's it.
So I think always the question about community conversation is how can maybe we as commissioners, how can we increase engagement? Because it's always can be at times kind of disappointing when people show up.
Well, so the Beaverton Trail will be one of the subjects, and that will likely attract some people. We're also in the middle of that management planning process. So that will be something that I'm sure will bring a few people, but it's always a challenge. So any kind of controversy that you can stir up between now and then.
Work on that.
Well, I would think, we've done so much in the past year, not only in terms of acquisitions, but in terms of improvements, stewardship projects. So I think, if we featured a summary of all of those on all of the islands, that's great. That's a very positive thing to show our constituents.
Yeah, just so we don't make too much extra work for the staff if they've already got something they can use, because so few people attend them. I mean, I think you get a good turnout at San Juan, but online. So I try to kind of.
We can recap that stuff and.
Yeah, exactly.
The idea being to put the word out about, particularly about the new acquisitions or the changes, and encourage folks to get out there.
Yeah.
And invite them. Okay. Last comments, suggestions before we close, future agenda or retreat topics? Oh, there's a hand up and it's Mark. Hi, Mark. Mark, you're muted. Try again.
Doesn't say that he's muted.
He is.
I think your speaker's not working.
About that.
Yeah, that
All
was.
right, sorry about that, folks. Just following up on Lincoln's comment about Blakely Island and clarifying the numbers. The island is actually 4,400 acres, more or less, and the Preservation Trust has easements on about 3,500 or so, 3,700. So that the recent acquisition by the land bank is a welcome addition to that, and I guess we're getting close to about 85% conserved on that big, beautiful island. So good work.
Good.
That's great.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. I was only off by 1,000 acres.
You're getting close.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners?
As far as future topics, we keep punting these along. If we have time at the retreat, which is unlikely, we could tackle a couple smaller ones. There's the hunting policy, the idea or proposal of green burials. And
That's a good one.
agriculture, but that's not a small topic.
It's an important one.
It is.
Yeah. I,
So, but that would be necessarily, we wouldn't have to just do those at the retreat. We could we do any of those at a meeting, like the Lopez meeting? Green burials.
Well, that's specifically at this point is an Orcas. I mean, all of the advocates are focusing on establishing that on Orcas. And my suggestion would be to wait until they make a presentation to us. I think the ball's in their court at this point, and until we have a couple of new commissioners to consider.
you don't want to be involved in that one.
No, that's not true. I've been very supportive of that, but I think, I'm not gonna be here. So I think the process kind of has to refresh itself and start again.
But they approached you before, Lincoln, about this, right?
Green
burial.
burial.
Yeah,
It's come around a few times.
and I know they've talked to Opal. And there's somebody here on Orcas that does this too. That is with the cemetery board and stuff.
Brian and I met with them not that long ago, and they were gonna come back with some kind of proposal.
Okay.
So Tim, you threw out the word agriculture,
I did.
and I'm not
Sorry.
sure what the focus of that might be.
In general, criteria for acquisition and, acquisition priorities would be the two that come to the top of my head. It's something that's been kicked around a lot. It's never been really set down on paper. And a good discussion topic, if nothing else, to try and figure out what the land bank's preferred outcome would be for agriculture.
I totally second that, because I think it's we have some precedents in terms of how we've approached ag in the past. Both in terms of acquisition and then leasing and then also conservation easement. And we have some opportunities going forward that I can see, and I have some questions and some kind of strong feelings about it going forward. So I'd love to have a larger conversation. And I think that would be, in terms of community conversation, I want to hear more from the ag community. What do they see?
Right.
And that could be an ag summit, which is next, whatever, February or whatever.
Right.
Actually have, specific input, but yeah. Because as we know, it's just kind of, go ahead, that's enough, I've said enough.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a good comment, and I would be interested in looking at that in terms of expenditures on ag.
Exactly.
Expenditures and obligations. What is our obligation as a landlord? Because I think we've spent a lot of money, although a lot of that is on Coffell Farm, I think. But there are some things that are unclear to me personally as to whether they are part of our obligation as in terms of infrastructure improvement, enhancement, specifically soil amendments.
Yes.
So.
Well, and we may have an ag project coming forward at the Lopez meeting next month.
So we don't have like a hierarchy of what we're looking for in the ag lands.
We've had some discussion about that. And right now we have 3 properties where there's potential for doing conservation easements, and they're different kinds of properties. And so that's kind of the issue, like what should we focus on? What should our priority be?
Okay.
I don't think we got too far in that conversation.
Okay, if nothing else, then we'll stand adjourned.
Do we have to have a second public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I think we have one member of the public here. So Mark, unless you have an additional comment, we will still stand adjourned. Thank you.
Good.